Her billionaire left her alone at home 8 months pregnant and flew abroad to marry his mistress with his family. When they returned happily, they were shocked to see... Hi, my beautiful family. Welcome back to Mr. Peter Stories, your own family story channel. May the Almighty pour His infinite mercy and light upon every woman in our lives. May He bless them with strength that no challenge can break, courage that inspires generations, and hearts overflowing with love that touches every soul around them. May the women who raise us, guide us, and nurture us feel honored, respected, and celebrated, not for what they do, but for who they are. May their lives be filled with joy, their spirits never dim, and their sacrifices always remembered. May every home be a sanctuary of peace because of their love. May every hardship turn into triumph through their strength. And may every woman know her true worth, the priceless, unwavering value she brings to the world. They are the pillars of life, the heartbeat of every family, and the unseen force that keeps hope alive. If your heart is true, like the video, if your love is real, write, "I am with Mr. Peter." Some women remember the moment their world ended by the sound of shattering glass or screaming voices, but Layla Eloan would remember it by the casual cruelty in her husband's laughter. She stood in the hallway outside their bedroom, one hand pressed against her swollen belly where their son kicked restlessly inside her. The other braced against the wall for support. 8 months pregnant and exhausted from another sleepless night, she had walked toward their room, hoping to find Lenny awake so they could talk about nursery colors or baby names, or any of the small, sweet things expectant parents discussed in the quiet hours before dawn. Instead, she heard his voice through the barely open door, low and intimate in a way he hadn't spoken to her in months. "I'm telling you, Thea, it's all arranged. My family has everything ready abroad. Once she has the baby and things settle down, I'll make up some business excuse and leave. She'll never find me." Layla's breath caught in her throat. The baby kicked harder, as if sensing her suddenly racing heart. Thea George's voice purred through the phone speaker, syrupy and satisfied. "And you're sure your family supports this? I don't want any complications when we get married for real." "Baby, they're the ones who planned it," Lenny said, and Layla heard him shift on the bed, probably lying back against the pillows she had fluffed that morning. "My mother already picked out the house for us. She said Layla was always temporary, just someone who got lucky for a while. You're the woman I should have married from the beginning." Layla's knees nearly buckled. Her free hand flew to her mouth to stifle the sob trying to escape. The baby kicked again, a sharp jab beneath her ribs that felt like even her unborn son was trying to wake her from this nightmare. "I can't wait to be your wife," Thea giggled. "A real wedding, not whatever that courthouse thing was with her." "That was my biggest mistake," Lenny agreed. "But I'm correcting it now. Just a few more weeks of playing the devoted husband, then I'm free." Layla backed away from the door slowly, each step deliberate and silent, despite the roaring in her ears. She made it to the guest bathroom before her legs gave out completely. Sitting on the closed toilet lid, she pressed both hands against her belly and let the truth wash over her in waves of nausea and disbelief. The man she loved was planning to abandon her. Not in some distant future, but soon, after their baby was born, after she was most vulnerable and needed him most. Her mind raced backward through their relationship, desperately searching for signs she had missed. She remembered the day they met, when she was Dr. Layla Eloan, chief cardiac surgeon at the city's most prestigious hospital. She had just finished a surgery that other doctors called impossible, saving the life of a prominent businessman whose heart had failed catastrophically. That businessman was Lenny's father. Lenny had come to thank her, devastatingly handsome in his grief and gratitude, and something in his eyes when he looked at her made her feel seen in a way she never had before. He pursued her relentlessly, showing up at the hospital with coffee, sending flowers to her office, waiting hours just to walk her to her car after long shifts. She fell for him completely, stupidly. She fell so hard that when he proposed, after several months of whirlwind romance, she said yes without hesitation. And when he mentioned that his family preferred traditional wives who focused on home and children rather than careers, she had actually considered it. No, she had done more than consider it. She had walked away from surgery, from the career she had built with blood, sweat, and tears through medical school and residency, from the lives she saved and the respect she commanded. She had given it all up because she loved Lenny Leopold enough to believe being his wife was enough. She had never told him about saving his father's life. It seemed unnecessary, even presumptuous. She wanted him to love her for herself, not for what she could do with a scalpel. So she had hidden that part of her history, letting him believe she was simply a woman who once worked in healthcare administration before deciding to focus on family. Now, sitting in the bathroom with tears streaming down her face and their baby moving inside her, Layla understood the magnitude of her mistake. She had made herself small for a man who was planning to throw her away like garbage. The bathroom door suddenly swung open. Lenny stood there, already dressed in an expensive suit, phone in hand. He barely glanced at her tear-stained face. "Why are you crying now?" he asked, annoyance clear in his voice. "The hormones again." Layla stared at him, this stranger wearing her husband's face. "Who were you talking to?" "Business call. International clients." He adjusted his tie, already moving toward the stairs. "I'll be back late tonight. Don't wait up." He was gone before she could respond, the front door slamming with finality. The sound of vehicles pulling up the driveway broke through her shock. Multiple vehicles. Layla pushed herself up from the toilet and walked slowly to the bedroom window that overlooked the front of the house. Her breath stopped completely. Lenny's entire family was emerging from luxury cars, all carrying suitcases. His mother, father, 2 brothers, their wives, even his grandmother. Layla's hands shook as she watched them march toward the front door. She heard the door open downstairs, heard Lenny greeting them with enthusiasm he never showed her anymore, heard his mother's sharp laugh. She descended the staircase slowly, one hand on the railing, the other cradling her belly. The family stood in a semicircle in the living room. Lenny stood apart, his expression unreadable. His mother saw Layla first. "There she is, the reason we're all here." Layla stopped at the stairs, suddenly aware of her nightgown, her swollen belly, her tear-swollen eyes. "What's going on?" she asked, hating how small her voice sounded. Lenny's father stepped forward, his face hard. This was the man whose life she had saved, though he didn't know it. "We're taking our son where he belongs. Away from you." Layla's legs threatened to give out. "What?" "You trapped him with that baby." Lenny's mother spat, gesturing at Layla's belly with disgust. "But Thea is who he really loves. We're taking him to marry a real woman, someone worthy of our family name." The words hit Layla like physical blows. She looked at Lenny, desperately searching his face for denial, for defense, for anything that suggested this wasn't happening. He wouldn't meet her eyes. "Lenny," she whispered, and hated how it came out like begging. "Tell them this isn't true." He shifted uncomfortably, his jaw tight. "It's complicated, Layla." "Complicated?" Her voice broke. "I'm 8 months pregnant with your child." "Our grandchild," his mother corrected coldly. "Who will be provided for? But you? You were never good enough for this family. You brought nothing to this marriage except that belly, and frankly, we're done pretending otherwise." Layla's vision blurred with fresh tears. She pressed both hands against her stomach, feeling her son move beneath her palms as if trying to comfort her. "We have a flight to catch," Lenny's father announced. "Lenny, get your bags. Everything's arranged at the house abroad. The wedding to Thea is scheduled for next month." Lenny moved mechanically toward the stairs, toward Layla. For one desperate moment, she thought he might stop, might look at her, might remember every promise he had made. He walked past her without a word, his shoulder brushing hers as he climbed the stairs to pack. Layla stood frozen while chaos erupted around her. Lenny's brothers grabbed pre-packed suitcases. His mother directed traffic like a general. His grandmother watched Layla with ancient, pitiless eyes. When Lenny came back down with his bags, Layla tried one more time. "Please don't do this," she said quietly, what remained of her dignity preventing her from falling to her knees. "Please." His mother stepped between them, and before Layla could react, the older woman spit directly at her feet. "You were never one of us," she hissed, "and you never will be." The family moved as one toward the door, a coordinated exodus that left Layla standing alone in the wreckage of her life. Lenny paused at the threshold, his back to her. "I'll have my lawyer contact you," he said without turning around. "About the baby." Then he was gone. They were all gone. The door slammed shut with the finality of a coffin closing. Layla stood in the sudden silence of the massive house, listening to the vehicles drive away. Her hands trembled as she wrapped her arms around her belly, trying to hold herself together. That was when she felt it, a sharp, sudden pain low in her abdomen that made her gasp. Then another, stronger and more insistent. Her water broke in a rush of fluid that soaked through her nightgown and pooled on the marble floor. "No," Layla whispered, looking down at the wetness spreading around her feet. "No, please, not yet. Not alone." But her body didn't care about her pleading. Another contraction ripped through her, so powerful it drove her to her knees. Layla fumbled for her phone with shaking hands, barely able to see through her tears as she dialed emergency services. The contractions were coming faster now, each one stealing her breath and her strength. "Please," she sobbed into the phone when the operator answered. "I need help. My water broke and I'm alone. Please help me. I'm alone." As she knelt on the floor of the mansion her husband had just abandoned her in, feeling her son fighting to enter a world that had already proven cruel, Layla Elowen made herself a promise through the pain and tears. She would survive this. She would bring her son safely into the world, and then she would remember who she was before she made herself small for a man who never deserved her. She was Dr. Layla Elowen. She had held beating hearts in her hands and brought the dying back to life, and when Lenny Leopold finally realized who he had thrown away, it would destroy him completely. Chapter 2. Alone in the Darkness. The ambulance arrived in a blur of sirens and flashing lights that cut through the early morning darkness. Layla barely registered the paramedics lifting her onto the stretcher, their voices professional and calm while her world splintered into pain and terror. Another contraction seized her body, so violent she screamed into the oxygen mask they pressed over her face. Female in active labor, approximately 8 months gestation, extreme distress, contractions less than 3 minutes apart. 8 months. Her son was coming too early. The thought pierced through the physical pain with something worse, a mother's primal fear that her baby would pay the price for his father's cruelty. The ambulance raced through empty streets, while Layla gripped the stretcher rails with white-knuckled hands. The female paramedic squeezed her shoulder. "You're doing great, Mama. Just breathe. Is there anyone we should call? Your husband? Family?" Layla shook her head violently, tears streaming down her temples. The paramedic's expression softened with understanding. She'd probably seen this before, women laboring alone, abandoned. The hospital emergency entrance blazed with fluorescent light. They wheeled her through automatic doors and down hallways that smelled of disinfectant and fear. Nurses materialized, checking monitors, asking questions she could barely answer. "We need to get her to delivery now. This baby isn't waiting." They burst through delivery room doors. A doctor appeared at her side, already snapping on gloves. "Layla, I'm Dr. Martinez. I know this is terrifying, but you're in good hands. Your baby wants to meet you. Can you tell me if this is your first child?" Layla nodded, gasping as another contraction built. Okay, first babies can be impatient too. Dr. Martinez examined her quickly, expression shifting. You're almost fully dilated. This little one is ready. When the next contraction comes, I need you to push. Layla wanted to say she couldn't, that she wasn't strong enough. But the contraction came like a freight train, and her body took over. That's it! Perfect! Again, Layla, push! Time fractured into an endless cycle of pain and effort. Layla pushed until she thought her body would tear apart. Nurses held her legs, wiped sweat from her face, murmured encouragement. At some point she called out for Lenny, a broken sob that shamed her even as it left her lips. You don't need him, a nurse whispered fiercely. You're doing this, all by yourself. You're incredible. The words gave Layla something to hold on to. Maybe she could pretend to be incredible long enough to bring her son safely into the world. One more big push, Layla. I can see his head. Layla gathered every shred of strength and pushed with everything in her. The pain peaked beyond endurance, then suddenly released. A baby's cry pierced the air, thin and reedy but absolutely perfect. It's a boy, Dr. Martinez announced, lifting a tiny, squirming body. A beautiful, healthy boy. They placed him on Layla's chest immediately, warm and slippery and impossibly small. She wrapped her arms around him instinctively, staring at his scrunched face and dark eyes that seemed to look directly into her soul. He stopped crying the moment they laid him against her skin. Hi, baby, Layla whispered, her voice broken and raw. Hi, my sweet boy. I'm your mama. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. The baby made a small sound, his tiny hand curling against her chest. Something in Layla's devastated heart shifted, hardened into something like steel wrapped in silk. This child would never doubt his worth. She would make sure of it. A nurse eventually took him to clean and weigh him while Dr. Martinez worked. Layla barely noticed. She couldn't stop thinking about her son's face. They moved her to a recovery room. A nurse brought her son back, swaddled in a hospital blanket with a tiny blue hat. Layla cradled him against her chest, overwhelmed by how perfectly he fit in her arms. Have you chosen a name? The nurse asked, preparing birth certificate paperwork. Layla looked down at her son's sleeping face. She and Lenny had discussed names before everything fell apart. He had wanted to name their son after his father. The thought of giving this innocent child any connection to that family made her physically ill. Elijah, she said softly. His name is Elijah Eloan. Her last name, not Lenny's. This baby belonged to her alone. The nurse smiled and wrote it down. After she left, Layla sat in the quiet room, holding Elijah while early morning light filtered through the window. She was a mother now, a single mother with no job, no family support, and a husband who had abandoned her hours before she gave birth. The reality settled over her like a weight, but beneath the fear, something else stirred. She had been Dr. Layla Eloan once, a surgeon so skilled that other doctors sent her their impossible cases. She had walked away from that life for love, but love had betrayed her. Maybe it was time to remember who she was before Lenny Leopold made her forget. A knock on the door interrupted her thoughts. Layla looked up, expecting another nurse, and instead found herself staring at Dr. Harrison, her silver-haired mentor from residency. Layla. His voice carried shock and something that might have been joy. Is that really you? She couldn't answer. Seeing him here felt like the universe was trying to tell her something. Dr. Harrison stepped into the room, his eyes moving from her face to the baby and back. His expression shifted to gentle concern. I was checking on a patient when I saw your name on the delivery board. Dr. Layla Eloan. I thought there must be some mistake. You disappeared years ago. I did, Layla whispered. Why? How could she explain that she had thrown away her career for a man who threw her away pregnant? Dr. Harrison moved closer, looking down at Elijah. He's beautiful. Where's the father? Layla's face must have answered because Dr. Harrison's jaw tightened with understanding and anger. I see. He pulled up a chair. Layla, I don't know what happened to bring you to this moment, but I need you to know something. The hospital has been struggling since you left. We've lost patients that you would have saved. The cardiac surgery department isn't the same without you. Dr. Harrison, let me finish. I know you must be overwhelmed right now. You just gave birth alone, which tells me everything. But I want you to consider something. Your hands were made to hold beating hearts and bring people back from death. You gave that up once. Don't give it up forever. Layla looked down at Elijah. I have a son now. I can't just... You can. The hospital has childcare, flexible schedules. We would work around your needs because we need you, Layla. But more than that, I think you need this. You need to remember that you're more than whatever situation brought you here tonight. His words struck something deep inside her. She had given up surgery for Lenny, had made herself small and powerless, had forgotten that she was Dr. Layla Owen, a woman who saved lives everyone else gave up on. Maybe it was time to save her own life. I'll think about it, she said, her voice stronger. Dr. Harrison stood, squeezing her shoulder. That's all I ask. Get some rest. Recover. Take care of that beautiful boy. But when you're ready, you know where to find me. After he left, Layla sat in the silence, processing everything. Elijah stirred against her chest, making small sounds in his sleep. She looked down at him and felt something shift inside her. She had spent hours laboring to bring him into this world, had screamed and bled and pushed through pain that should have broken her. But she hadn't broken. She had survived. And if she could survive that, she could survive anything. We're going to be okay, she whispered to her sleeping son. I promise you, baby, we're going to be better than okay. Your mama is going to show you what strength looks like, what real power is. Outside the window, the sun continued to rise, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Somewhere out there, Lenny was boarding a plane to marry his mistress, probably already forgetting the wife he abandoned in labor. But Layla wasn't thinking about him anymore. She was thinking about scalpels and surgical theaters, about the weight of a human heart in her hands, about the woman she had been before love made her forget. Dr. Layla Owen was coming back from the dead, and when Lenny Leopold finally realized what he'd thrown away, she would already be so far beyond his reach that his regret would taste like ashes. Chapter 3. The Queen Remembers Her Crown. The first few months passed in a blur of sleepless nights and fierce determination. Layla moved through her days with Elijah strapped to her chest, learning motherhood while reclaiming the parts of herself she had buried. Dr. Harrison offered her a gradual return to surgery that accommodated her new reality as a single mother. She started with consultations, reviewing cases from home while Elijah napped. It felt like stretching muscles that had atrophied, painful at first but growing stronger. The hospital's chief of surgery, Dr. Reeves, called her one evening while she was feeding Elijah. We have a case. Female patient, severe mitral valve prolapse, 3 surgeons declined. Too risky. But I looked at her scans and thought of you. Layla's heart rate kicked up. Tell me about her. Mid-40s, otherwise healthy, but the valve damage is extensive. Survival chances less than 30%. Layla shifted Elijah higher. Send me the scans. I'll review them tonight. Layla, you just had a baby. If you're not ready, send me the scans, she repeated, her voice carrying the authority she had almost forgotten she possessed. The files arrived within the hour. Layla settled Elijah in his bassinet and opened her laptop, losing herself in the images of a failing heart. The valve was severely damaged, but as she studied the scans, something clicked in her mind. She could see the path, the precise approach, the angle, the technique that might save this woman's life. Her hands tingled with the memory of sutures and scalpels. Her body remembered. She called Dr. Reeves back at midnight. I'll do it, but I need the best surgical team. I need Dr. Harrison assisting, and everyone understands that once I'm in that operating room, my word is final." Dr. Reeves's relieved laugh came through. "Dr. Elowen, you never lost your edge, did you?" "I lost it for a while," Layla admitted, glancing at Elijah. "But I found it again." The surgery was scheduled for the following week. Layla spent every spare moment reviewing the procedure, her hands practicing motions in the air while Elijah watched with curious eyes. She arranged for a colleague's wife to watch him during the surgery. The morning of the surgery, Layla stood in the scrub room, methodically washing her hands and forearms. Dr. Harrison appeared beside her, already scrubbed. "How do you feel?" he asked. "Like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be," Layla answered honestly. They entered the operating theater together. The patient lay anesthetized on the table, her chest prepped and draped. The surgical team looked at Layla with curiosity and respect. Word had spread about the legendary Dr. Elowen's return. "Good morning, everyone," Layla said, her voice clear. "Let's save a life." The first incision felt like coming home. Her hands moved with precision she thought she'd lost, muscle memory combining with conscious skill. The hours blurred in focused intensity. She repaired the damaged valve with sutures so fine they were barely visible. "Textbook perfect," Dr. Harrison murmured. "I'd forgotten how good you are." "I hadn't," Layla replied, not looking up. "I just forgot that I knew." When the valve was repaired and the heart was closing, prepared to beat on its own again, Layla felt something shift inside her chest. This was power, real power, not the false power of being some man's wife or arm candy or possession. This was the power to hold someone's life in your hands and choose to save them. The patient's heart began beating in its repaired rhythm, strong and steady. The monitoring equipment confirmed what Layla already knew. Perfect. "Excellent work, Dr. Elowen," the anesthesiologist said. The surgical team's applause was soft, respectful, but genuine. Layla nodded acknowledgement, already focused on closing the chest cavity with the same meticulous care she'd used for the heart itself. When she finally stepped out of the operating room hours later, exhausted but exhilarated, she found Dr. Reeves waiting in the hallway. "The family wants to meet you," he said. "The patient's daughter specifically. She's been researching you. Apparently you have quite a reputation." Layla followed him to the family waiting area where a young woman stood anxiously. The woman's eyes widened when she saw Layla's surgical scrubs. "Dr. Elowen, you're the one who operated on my mother?" "I am," Layla confirmed gently. "The surgery went very well. Your mother is strong and she fought hard. She should make a full recovery." The woman burst into tears, covering her face with her hands. "3 doctors told us she was going to die. They said the risk was too high, that we should prepare ourselves. But you saved her. You actually saved her." Layla felt emotion tighten her throat. This was what she had given up, the ability to change someone's entire world with skill and courage and refusal to give up. "Your mother saved herself by being strong enough to survive the surgery," Layla said. "I just helped her along." The woman grabbed Layla's hands, squeezing them hard. "I looked you up. I know you disappeared from medicine for a while. I don't know why, and it's none of my business. But I'm so grateful you came back. My mother is alive because you came back." After the woman left to see her recovering mother, Layla stood in the hallway, processing the enormity of what had just happened. She had successfully performed complex cardiac surgery after years away from the operating room. She had saved a life everyone else had given up on. She was Dr. Layla Elowen again, fully and completely. Over the following weeks, word of Layla's successful surgery spread through the medical community like wildfire. Referrals began pouring in, doctors sending her their most challenging cardiac cases, patients arriving at the hospital specifically requesting her. Layla developed a rhythm, balancing motherhood and medicine with fierce efficiency. She worked mostly during Elijah's naps and after his bedtime, reviewing cases and planning surgeries while he slept peacefully nearby. When she did operate, she had a network of trusted caregivers who understood the life and death nature of her work. Elijah thrived, growing into a cheerful baby with his mother's dark eyes and a smile that could light up a room. Layla would hold him at night, whispering promises about the life they would build together, just the two of them. She never thought about Lenny, or rather she tried not to. Some nights, feeding Elijah in the quiet darkness, she would wonder if Lenny ever thought about them, if he ever regretted his choices, if his new wife made him happy. Then she would look at her son, perfect and peaceful in her arms, and realize she didn't care. Lenny had made his choice, and it had freed her to become the woman she was always meant to be. It was during one of these late-night feedings that Layla's phone rang. Dr. Harrison's name appeared on the screen. "I'm sorry to call so late," he said when she answered. "But I wanted you to hear this from me before you heard it somewhere else. We had a consultation request come through tonight. High-profile patient, critical cardiac situation." "Okay," Layla said slowly, adjusting Elijah against her shoulder. "What's special about this one?" Dr. Harrison hesitated. "The patient is asking for you specifically, by name. Says you saved his life once before, several years ago, and he trusts only you to save him again." Layla's stomach dropped. She knew before Dr. Harrison said the name. Somehow, she just knew. "It's Lenny Leopold's father," Dr. Harrison said quietly. "And according to the notes, the family has been searching desperately for you. They have no idea you're the wife their son abandoned." Layla's hand tightened on her phone. The universe had a vicious sense of irony. "What's his condition?" she asked, her voice professionally neutral. "Severe heart failure, same issues as before, but worse now. Every cardiologist they've consulted has said the same thing. Only one surgeon has ever successfully operated on his particular condition. Only one surgeon they trust to try again." "Me," Layla finished. "You," Dr. Harrison confirmed. "The question is, are you going to do it?" Layla looked down at Elijah, now asleep in her arms, milk-drunk and content. She thought about Lenny's mother spitting at her feet, about his father's contemptuous expression as he told her she wasn't good enough for their family, about the entire Leopold family boarding planes to watch Lenny marry another woman while leaving her alone and pregnant. They had no idea who she was, no idea that the desperate, abandoned wife was the legendary surgeon they were searching for. A slow smile spread across Layla's face. "Tell them Dr. Alawan will review the case," she said, "but on my terms. They come to me. They wait for my decision. And they understand that I don't work for them. They're begging me for help." She could hear the smile in Dr. Harrison's voice. "I'll pass that along. Layla, whatever you're planning, just remember that I'm a doctor and my oath is to save lives." Layla interrupted. "I remember, Harrison. I'll save him. But first, they're going to learn exactly who they threw away." After she hung up, Layla sat in the darkness, her mind already spinning with possibilities. The Leopolds were coming to her, desperate and afraid, not knowing that the woman they had treated like garbage was the only person who could save them. Karma, it seemed, had a wicked sense of timing. She would save Lenny's father's life, but not before making them all understand the magnitude of their mistake. Not before showing them that the woman they abandoned pregnant was more powerful than they had ever imagined. Layla kissed Elijah's forehead softly. "Your mama is about to show them what a real queen looks like," she whispered. "And baby, it's going to be beautiful." Chapter 4. The Knock on Heaven's Door. The consultation request came through official channels within days, loaded with urgency that bordered on desperation. Layla sat in her home office, Elijah playing contentedly nearby with soft toys, and reviewed the medical files. Lenny's father's condition had deteriorated significantly. The heart she had saved years ago was failing again, the damage more extensive. It was a miracle he was still alive. The file included a personal letter, handwritten on expensive stationery. "Dr. Alawan, you saved my life once before, though we never met face to face. I was told you were a miracle worker, and you proved it. Now I find myself in desperate need of another miracle. I am prepared to offer whatever compensation you require. Please, you are my only hope." The signature was shaky but legible. The handwriting of a dying man. Layla looked at her son, watching Elijah grab at a stuffed animal with his tiny hands. She felt the weight of her oath as a doctor, the responsibility to save lives, even lives belonging to people who had hurt her. She would do this surgery, but first they would understand exactly who they were dealing with. Layla drafted her response carefully. "I have reviewed your case and am willing to consult. However, I do not travel to patients. You will come to my hospital, at my convenience. My decision to operate is not guaranteed. My schedule is demanding, as I am also a single mother. If you wish to discuss your case, these are my terms." She hit send before she could second-guess herself. The response came back within the hour. "We accept all terms. When can we meet?" Layla scheduled the consultation for the following week, deliberately choosing a time that would require the Leopold family to rearrange their lives. She spent the days leading up to it preparing meticulously, reviewing every detail. Dr. Harrison appeared in her office the day before the consultation. "The Leopold family arrived in the city yesterday. They've been calling the hospital every few hours, asking about you. They seem very anxious to meet the famous Dr. Alawan." "Good," Layla said simply. Dr. Harrison studied her carefully. "You know, you still haven't told me your connection to this family. You'll see tomorrow. Just do me a favor. Don't tell them anything about me except my professional credentials." The morning of the consultation, Layla dressed with deliberate care. A perfectly tailored suit that spoke of success and authority, her hair swept back elegantly. She looked at herself in the mirror and saw power reflected back. Dr. Alawan, surgeon, mother, survivor. She arranged for Elijah to spend the day with her trusted caregiver, kissing his soft cheek before she left. "Mama has to go remind some people who they're dealing with," she whispered. "I'll be back soon, baby boy." The consultation was scheduled in one of the hospital's private conference rooms. Layla arrived deliberately late, letting them wait. She stood outside the door for a moment, steadying herself, then pushed it open with confidence. The Leopold family turned as one to stare at her. Layla watched their faces carefully. Confusion first as they tried to place her. Then slowly, horrifyingly, recognition bloomed like poison flowers. Lenny's mother went pale, her hand flying to her throat. Lenny's father, sitting in a wheelchair, gripped the armrests until his knuckles went white, and Lenny himself, standing behind his father's wheelchair, looked like he'd seen a ghost. "Hello," Layla said calmly, closing the door. "I'm Dr. Layla Alawan. I understand you need my help." The silence was absolute. It was Lenny's father who spoke first, his voice shaking. "You? You're Dr. Alawan? You're the surgeon who saved my life?" "I am. I was Dr. Alawan when I performed your previous surgery several years ago, before I became your son's wife." Lenny made a strangled sound. "Layla." "Dr. Alawan," she corrected sharply. "In this hospital, in this context, you will address me as Dr. Alawan. Are we clear?" He nodded mutely. Layla turned her attention back to Lenny's father. "I've reviewed your current scans. Your condition is serious. The previous repair is failing and the damage has progressed significantly. Without intervention, you have perhaps months to live. With surgery, your chances of survival are approximately 50%. But you can do it?" the old man asked desperately. You can save me again? I can try. I am possibly the only surgeon in the country with the specific expertise to attempt this procedure. But before we discuss whether I will operate, I need to understand something. She leaned forward slightly. Did any of you recognize my name when you began searching for Dr. Elowen? Lenny's mother found her voice, though it trembled. You never told us. You said you worked in healthcare administration. I was a surgeon, chief of cardiac surgery at this hospital. I gave up my career when I married your son because he said his family preferred traditional wives. I walked away from everything I had built because I loved him enough to believe that being his wife was enough. She paused, letting that sink in. And then your son abandoned me, 8 months pregnant, alone in a house that belonged to me, while your entire family boarded planes to watch him marry his mistress abroad. Do you remember that day? Lenny's mother's face crumpled. We didn't know. We didn't know you were a surgeon, a woman of value, someone worthy of basic human decency. I shouldn't have needed to be a surgeon for you to treat me with respect. I shouldn't have needed to be anything other than the mother of your grandchild. Please, Lenny's father said, tears streaming down his face. Please, I'm sorry. We were terrible to you. We were cruel and wrong. But I'm begging you, please don't let our mistakes cost me my life. Layla looked at him, this powerful man reduced to begging, and felt the complexity of her emotions. Anger, yes, but also pity. And beneath it all, her fundamental commitment to her oath. Where is your new wife? She asked Lenny directly. Thea, wasn't it? Lenny's jaw tightened. Thea and I are no longer together. She left months ago. I see. And how is your life treating you these days, Lenny? Happy with your choices? He couldn't meet her eyes. No, I'm not happy. I made the worst mistake of my life when I left you. I've regretted it every single day since. That must be difficult for you, Layla said, her tone carrying just enough edge. She turned back to his father. I will operate on you. Not because your family deserves my help, but because I took an oath to save lives regardless of personal feelings. However, I have conditions. Anything, the old man said immediately. This isn't about money. First condition, you will publicly acknowledge that I saved your life, both times. You will make sure everyone in your social circle knows that Dr. Layla Elowen, the woman your family deemed unworthy, was the only surgeon skilled enough to save you. Done, he agreed. Second condition, you will meet your grandson. His name is Elijah and he is perfect and beautiful. But understand this clearly, he is my son, raised by me alone, and you will never, ever question my worth as his mother or as a woman again. Lenny's mother was openly crying. Can we see him? Please, can we meet our grandson? After the surgery. If your husband survives, we will discuss visitation arrangements. But Elijah's well-being comes first, always. Those are non-negotiable terms. We understand, Lenny's father said, and we agree to everything. Please, Dr. Elowen, save my life, and I swear to you, we will spend the rest of our days trying to make up for what we did. Layla stood, smoothing her skirt. The surgery is scheduled for next week. My assistant will provide you with all the pre-operative instructions. Follow them exactly. Your son may contact my office if you have questions, but he will communicate through my staff. I have no desire for personal interactions. She moved toward the door, then paused, looking back one more time. One more thing. I want you to understand something. I didn't become powerful to spite you. I didn't reclaim my career to make you regret your choices. I did it because I remembered that I am more than what any man or family decides I'm worth. I did it for me, and for my son. Your regret is simply a consequence, not the goal. Remember that. She left them sitting in shocked silence. Dr. Harrison was waiting in the hallway, having obviously been listening. His expression mixed pride and concern. That was either the most professionally appropriate revenge I've ever witnessed, or the most dangerous emotional situation I've seen a surgeon walk into. I'm not sure which. It's both, Layla admitted, but I meant what I said. I'll save him because that's who I am. What they do with that gift afterward is up to them. She walked toward her office, her heels clicking with authority on the polished floor. Behind her, she heard raised voices from the conference room, Lenny's family arguing among themselves, the weight of their mistakes finally hitting them. Layla felt no satisfaction in their pain, only a deep, settling sense of justice. They would learn who she was, they would understand what they had thrown away, and when she saved his father's life with those hands they had deemed worthless, they would spend the rest of their days knowing they had crucified a queen. Chapter 5. The door slams shut. The week before the surgery crawled past with agonizing slowness for the Leopold family, though Layla barely thought about them at all. She spent her days reviewing the surgical plan with meticulous care, her nights with Elijah, who was becoming more alert and interactive. He would smile at her now, these beautiful gummy grins that made her heart feel too large for her chest. Everything she did for him. The surgery, the confrontation with Lenny's family, even her return to medicine itself, all of it was to build a life worthy of this perfect child. Meanwhile, the Leopold family had remained in the city, staying at an expensive hotel near the hospital. Layla knew this because Lenny had tried to contact her personally several times, messages she ignored completely. He finally resorted to sending flowers to her office with a card that read simply, "I'm sorry. Please let me explain." Layla handed the arrangement to a nurse. "Take these to the children's ward. Someone there might enjoy them." Dr. Harrison found her in the surgical prep area the day before the operation, reviewing equipment and running through the procedure in her mind. "The Leopold family has been model patients," he reported, following every instruction exactly. "The father's pre-op tests look as good as they can, given his condition. He's ready for surgery." "Good," Layla said, checking the surgical instruments one more time. "And the security measures I requested. All in place. No family members will be allowed in the surgical wing during the procedure. We've designated a private waiting area on the other side of the hospital." "Perfect." Layla looked up at her mentor. "Harrison, if something goes wrong during this surgery, I need you to know it won't be because I let my personal feelings interfere. I'm going to save that man's life because I'm a surgeon, and that's what surgeons do." "I know," Harrison said gently. "But Layla, are you prepared for what comes after? If you successfully save him, that family is going to be in your life. They're going to want access to you, to Elijah. Are you ready for that?" Layla thought about it carefully. "They threw me away when they thought I was powerless. Now they're going to learn what it means to need me, to owe me everything. I think I can handle that." The night before the surgery, Layla held Elijah close, breathing in his baby scent, feeling his warm weight against her chest. "Tomorrow, Mama is going to save a man's life," she whispered to him. "A man who was cruel to me, whose family hurt us. But I'm going to save him anyway, because that's what strong people do. We don't become like the people who hurt us. We stay true to ourselves. Remember that when you're older, baby. Remember that being powerful doesn't mean being cruel." Elijah yawned, his tiny fist curling against her shirt. He had no idea the significance of tomorrow, no understanding of the web of history and pain and redemption that surrounded this surgery. He just knew his mother's heartbeat and her love, and for now, that was enough. The morning of the surgery arrived with the pre-dawn darkness that Layla had always loved. She dressed in her surgical scrubs with the reverence of a warrior donning armor. Every step of her preparation ritual was deliberate and precise. The hospital corridors were quiet at this hour, peaceful in the way only hospitals at dawn could be. Layla made her way to the surgical wing, nodding at the night shift nurses, feeling her mind shift into the focused clarity that surgery required. The Leopold family was already in their designated waiting area, looking haggard and anxious. Layla glimpsed them as she passed, noted Lenny pacing while his mother sat with her head bowed in prayer. She didn't stop. They weren't her concern right now. Her patient was. In the pre-op area, Lenny's father lay on the gurney, looking small and fragile in his hospital gown. When Layla entered, his eyes opened and focused on her with desperate hope. "Dr. Ilawan," he said, his voice weak. "Thank you. Thank you for giving me this chance." Layla moved to his bedside, checking the monitors and IV lines with professional efficiency. "I want to be very clear about something before we begin. This surgery has significant risks. Your heart has suffered extensive damage. I will do everything in my power to save you, but you need to understand that you might not survive this." "I understand," he said, "but I'd rather die trying than waste away over the next few months. And Dr. Ilawan, if I don't make it, I need you to know something." "Save your strength," Layla said gently. "Tell me after the surgery." "No." He grabbed her hand with surprising strength. "In case there is no after, I need you to know that I'm ashamed of how we treated you, of what we did. You deserved better, and I failed you. I failed my grandson. If I die today, at least I died knowing that the woman I dismissed as worthless was actually the only person powerful enough to try to save me. There's poetry in that. Painful poetry." Layla felt unexpected emotion tighten her throat. "Don't talk about dying. I didn't agree to operate just to lose you on the table. Now rest. I'll see you when you wake up." The anesthesiologist arrived to begin the sedation process. Layla squeezed the old man's hand once, briefly, then left to scrub in. Dr. Harrison joined her at the scrub sink, along with the carefully selected surgical team. Everyone knew the stakes of this operation, the delicate nature of the repair they were attempting. "Ready?" Harrison asked. "Always," Layla replied. The operating theater was cool and bright, every surface sterile and prepared. Lenny's father was already unconscious on the table, his chest draped and exposed. Layla took her position, scalpel in hand, and felt the familiar calm settle over her. This was where she belonged, not in some mansion playing housewife to a man who didn't value her. Here, with a life balanced on the edge of her skill and determination. "Let's begin," she said. The first incision was perfect, as always. Blood welled up and was immediately suctioned away. Layla worked with steady precision, opening the chest cavity, exposing the heart that she had repaired once before. The damage was worse than the scans had indicated. She heard Harrison's sharp intake of breath when he saw the extent of the deterioration. "That's severe," he murmured. "But not impossible," Layla countered. "Retract her." For the next several hours, Layla performed what could only be described as surgical artistry. The repair was complex, requiring her to essentially rebuild portions of the heart that had failed. She worked with absolute focus, her hands steady, her mind calculating every move 3 steps ahead. At one point, the heart began to fibrillate dangerously. Alarms sounded, the team tensed. "Stay calm," Layla commanded. "Paddles ready, but wait. Let me try something first." She adjusted her approach, working faster but no less precisely, her fingers dancing through the delicate tissue. After what felt like an eternity, but was probably less than a minute, the heart rhythm stabilized. "That's our girl," Harrison breathed. "Brilliant." The surgery stretched past 6 hours, then 7, then 8. Layla's back ached and her hands cramped, but she didn't stop, didn't even pause except when absolutely necessary. This heart would beat again. She would make certain of it. Finally, after 9 hours, the repair was complete. Layla stepped back, letting the team handle the closing while she watched the monitors showing strong, steady heartbeats. "He's stable," the anesthesiologist confirmed. "Vitals are good, better than good actually, remarkably strong." "Of course they are," Layla said, pulling off her surgical gloves. "I don't do half measures." She left the closing to her capable team and went to the scrub room, washing away the blood and sweat, feeling the adrenaline finally begin to fade. Her hands shook slightly now that the surgery was over, the natural release of hours of intense concentration. Dr. Harrison appeared beside her. That was some of the finest cardiac surgery I've witnessed in 30 years of medicine. You didn't just save that man's life, Layla. You gave him years he shouldn't have had. Good, Layla said simply. He has a lot to make up for. He'll need those years. The Leopold family was gathered in the waiting room when Layla entered, still in her surgical scrubs, her hair damp from the scrub room. They jumped to their feet as one, their faces desperate. He's alive, Layla said without preamble. The surgery was successful. He'll be in recovery for several hours, but his vital signs are strong. He survived. Lenny's mother burst into tears, grabbing onto one of her sons for support. Lenny himself stood frozen, staring at Layla with an expression she couldn't quite read. Thank you, he finally managed. Thank you for saving him. I didn't do it for you, Layla said bluntly. I did it because I'm a surgeon, and saving lives is what I do. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a son to get home to. She turned to leave, but Lenny's voice stopped her. Layla, please, can we talk? Just for a minute? She looked back at him, this man who had once been her entire world. He looked tired and older than she remembered, shadows under his eyes and new lines around his mouth. The shine was gone from him, the careless confidence replaced with something that looked like regret. We have nothing to discuss, Layla said. I left Thea, he said desperately, months ago. It was a disaster from the beginning. She only wanted money, and I realized too late that I had traded everything real for something completely false. I made the worst mistake of my life, Layla. Please, let me apologize properly. Let me try to make this right. Layla felt nothing but tired pity looking at him. You think an apology makes up for abandoning me pregnant, for letting your family spit on me, for leaving me to give birth alone while you married another woman? No, Lenny said, his voice breaking. I know nothing makes up for that, but I want to try. I want to know my son. I want to be part of his life, part of your life, if you'll let me. My son has a life, Layla said coldly. A good life, with a mother who loves him and a future full of possibilities. He doesn't need a father who abandoned him before he was even born. As for being part of my life, she laughed, short and bitter. Lenny, you were never worthy of being part of my life. I just didn't realize it until you threw me away. She left him standing there, walked out of the waiting room and through the hospital corridors to her office. Once inside with the door closed, she finally let herself feel the weight of the day. She had saved the life of a man who had scorned her, had stood in front of her ex-husband and made clear that he meant nothing to her anymore, had proven beyond any shadow of doubt that she was powerful and skilled and completely beyond his reach. It should have felt like victory, and in some ways it did, but mostly Layla just felt tired. She pulled out her phone and looked at the photo she'd taken of Elijah that morning, his smile bright and beautiful. This was what mattered, not revenge or proving points or making people regret their choices. Just this, her son, her career, her reclaimed power. The rest was just noise. Chapter 6. The truth cuts deeper than any scalpel. Recovery was slow for Lenny's father, but after several days in intensive care, he was moved to a private room where his vitals showed steady improvement. Layla made her rounds daily, checking on him with professional detachment. She had made it clear that her care extended only to her patient, not to providing emotional support for his relatives. It was on the 5th day post-surgery that Lenny's father requested a private conversation. Layla dismissed the family members, waiting until the door closed before settling into the chair beside his bed. How are you feeling? She asked, checking the monitor readings. Like I've been given a miracle I don't deserve, he said honestly. His voice was stronger now, though still weak. Dr. Elowen, I asked to speak with you alone because I need to say something without my family hearing. Go ahead, Layla said neutrally. When my son told us he was marrying you, I did some investigation into your background. Standard procedure, or so I told myself. He paused, taking a labored breath. I found nothing. No family wealth, no social connections, no professional achievements. I told Lenny he could do better. Layla's jaw tightened, but she remained silent. What I didn't know, he continued, was that the reason I found nothing was because you had deliberately hidden who you were, because you loved my son enough to want him to love you for yourself, not for your accomplishments or skills. That kind of purity, that kind of genuine love is rarer than any professional achievement, and we destroyed it. Yes, Layla said simply. You did. I remember now, the old man said, tears sliding down his weathered face. The day of my first surgery, I was terrified. They wheeled me into the operating room, and the last thing I saw before the anesthesia took me was this beautiful young surgeon looking down at me with absolute confidence. She said, "You're going to be fine. I promise you." That was you, wasn't it? That was me, Layla confirmed. You saved my life, and months later my son introduced you as his girlfriend. You never said a word, never mentioned that you were the miracle worker who had given me more years with my family. Why? Layla looked away, out the hospital window at the city below. Because I wanted your son to love me for who I was as a person, not what I could do for his family. I thought love should be pure like that, free from calculations and advantages. And we treated that purity like garbage, he said bitterly. We threw away the woman who saved my life because we didn't think she was good enough for our family name. The irony is devastating. Yes, Layla agreed. It is. Can you ever forgive us? He asked quietly. Layla considered the question carefully. I can forgive you for not recognizing me as Dr. Alawan. That was my choice to keep that secret. But forgiving how you treated me when you thought I was powerless, that's harder. You showed me who you really were that day, the kind of people who value social status over human decency. That knowledge doesn't just disappear because you realize your mistake. I understand, he said, and I don't expect your forgiveness, but I hope over time you might allow us to know our grandson. We'll see, Layla said. Right now, focus on healing. She rose to leave, but his voice stopped her. My son is miserable. He's been miserable since the day he left you. I'm just telling you so you know the price he's paid. His misery isn't my concern, Layla said without turning around. Mine is. She left the room and nearly collided with Lenny in the hallway. He had obviously been waiting, probably listening at the door. We need to talk, he said urgently. No, we don't, Layla replied, moving to walk past him. He grabbed her arm gently. Layla looked down at his hand, then up at his face with an expression cold enough to freeze blood. Remove your hand, she said quietly. Now. He dropped it immediately. I'm sorry, please. Just 5 minutes. Against her better judgment, Layla gestured to an empty consultation room. They entered and she leaned against the desk, arms crossed, waiting. Lenny paced, running his hands through his hair. I destroyed my life. Everything good I had, I threw away for what? For Thea, who left me when money got tight? I'm such an idiot, Layla. Yes, Layla agreed. You are. Thea and I weren't even married a month before I realized my mistake. She complained constantly. Everything was about status and appearances and what I could buy her. She didn't know the first thing about actually building a life with someone, and all I could think about was you. How you used to laugh at my stupid jokes. How you made our house feel like home. How you loved me even when I gave you nothing in return. Stop, Layla said sharply. I don't want to hear this. I don't care about your regrets or your realizations. You made your choice. I know, Lenny said, moving closer, but I'm asking for another chance, to be a father to Elijah, to be in your life in whatever capacity you'll allow. I'm not asking you to love me again. I know I destroyed that. I'm just asking you not to shut me out completely. Layla looked at him, really looked at him, and felt absolutely nothing. No love, no anger, not even hatred, just emptiness, where he used to exist in her heart. "You want to know something funny?" she said. "When I was in labor, scared and alone, I called out for you. I cried your name through the pain. The nurses felt so sorry for me, this abandoned woman giving birth without anyone to hold her hand. Do you know what that felt like? To need you and know you were somewhere celebrating your new marriage?" Lenny's face crumpled. "Layla, but then Elijah was born," she continued, "and he was perfect. And I realized I didn't need you. I didn't need anyone except him. That baby you couldn't be bothered to stay for. He saved me, Lenny. He reminded me that I was strong enough to handle anything, even being abandoned by the man I loved." "I'm so sorry," Lenny said, tears streaming down his face. "If I could go back—" "But you can't," Layla interrupted. "None of us can. So here's what's going to happen. Your father is recovering well. I'll continue his care until he's stable enough to be discharged. After that, if you want to meet Elijah, I'll consider it. For his sake, not yours. Every child deserves to know their father, even fathers who don't deserve to know them." "Thank you," Lenny breathed. "Thank you so much." "But understand this clearly," Layla said, her voice like steel wrapped in silk. "I will never, ever be your wife again. I will never trust you. I will never love you. You threw away something precious, and you don't get it back just because you finally realized its value. Elijah will know his father because that's what's best for him. But you and me? We're nothing to each other except co-parents of a child you abandoned." She moved toward the door, then paused. "And Lenny, don't ever touch me again without permission. We're not friends. We're barely civil. Remember that." Layla left him standing in the consultation room, shoulders shaking with sobs, and felt nothing but relief. That chapter of her life was closed. She had finally said everything she needed to say, had drawn the boundaries that would protect her and Elijah going forward. The rest of her shift passed in a blur of patient consultations and surgical reviews. By the time she left the hospital, evening had settled over the city, streetlights beginning to glow in the dusk. Layla picked up Elijah from her caregiver's house, holding him close as he babbled happily about his day in the nonsense language of babies. His joy was infectious, uncomplicated, and pure. "Mama had a long day," she told him, buckling him into his car seat. "But we're going home now, baby. Just you and me." As she drove through the city toward their home, Layla realized something important. She wasn't the same woman who had been abandoned, pregnant, and desperate. That woman had been broken by betrayal, had questioned her worth, had forgotten her power. The woman driving this car, singing softly to her son, was someone different, stronger, clearer, completely uninterested in the approval or love of people who had proven themselves unworthy. Dr. Layla Elowen had returned from the dead, and she was never making herself small for anyone ever again. Chapter 7. Identity revealed. Word spread through the city's social circles with the speed of wildfire. The Leopold family, once pillars of society, had been saved by the very woman they'd scorned. The gossip was delicious, the irony too perfect to resist. Layla heard about it from Dr. Reeves, who appeared in her office grinning. "You're becoming quite famous. Apparently the social elite can't stop talking about the surgeon who saved her ex-father-in-law after being abandoned pregnant. You're either a saint or a calculated genius, depending on who's telling the story." "I'm neither," Layla said, not looking up from her chart. "I'm just a doctor doing my job. A doctor who happens to have the most dramatic backstory I've heard in my entire career. Layla, you know what this means, right? Every high society family in this city is going to want you as their surgeon now." He was right. Over the following days, referrals poured in from wealthy families. Her schedule filled months in advance. But the attention wasn't all professional. The media picked up the story, framing it as a tale of female empowerment and resilience. A local news station requested an interview. A magazine wanted to feature her. Layla turned them all down. This wasn't about publicity or revenge. This was about building a life for Elijah. What she couldn't avoid was the social reckoning happening to the Leopold family. Lenny's mother called her office repeatedly, eventually reaching Layla through sheer persistence. "Dr. Elowen, please, I need to apologize to you properly, not over the phone, but in person." Layla agreed to meet her at a cafe near the hospital, neutral territory. She arranged for Elijah to spend the afternoon with Dr. Harrison's wife. Lenny's mother was already seated when Layla arrived, looking smaller and older than she remembered. The woman who had spit at her feet now sat hunched over tea, her hands trembling. "Thank you for coming," she said. "I wasn't sure you would." "I almost didn't," Layla admitted. "What do you want?" "To apologize, to beg for your forgiveness, to explain, if you'll let me, why I was so cruel." "Explanations aren't excuses," Layla said coolly. "I know." The older woman took a shaky breath. "I was raised in a world where a woman's value was measured by what family she came from. My own mother drilled it into me that we had to protect our family's status at all costs. When Lenny brought you home, you seemed lovely, but I couldn't find your pedigree. No prominent family name, just a woman who worked in hospital administration." "So you decided I wasn't good enough," Layla finished. "Yes, and I was horribly, inexcusably wrong. But it wasn't really about you. It was about my own insecurities, my fear that if Lenny married someone without the right background, it reflected poorly on how I raised him." Layla stirred her coffee. "And the spitting, the cruelty when I was 8 months pregnant." Shame colored the older woman's face. "There's no excuse for that. I was angry that you trapped my son with a pregnancy, or so I told myself. Really, I think I was just trying to prove to myself that I was right about you being wrong for him." "You succeeded," Layla said. "You made me feel worthless that day." "I'm so sorry," Lenny's mother said, tears spilling over. "I'm so ashamed of who I was, what I did. And now, knowing that you were Dr. Elowen all along, I can barely live with myself." "Good," Layla said bluntly. "You should struggle with it. You should feel that shame every day." They sat in silence for a moment. Finally, Layla spoke. "I'll tell you what I told your husband. I can forgive you for not recognizing me as the surgeon who saved him. That was my choice to hide. But forgiving how you treated me when you thought I had no power, that's different. That revealed your true character." "You're right," Lenny's mother said, "and I don't expect forgiveness, but I'm hoping you'll let us know our grandson." Layla thought about Elijah, his beautiful smile and innocent joy. He deserved to know his extended family if they could prove themselves worthy. "I'll consider it. But understand that my son's well-being is my only priority. If I sense for even a moment that your family's toxicity might affect him, you'll never see him again." "We accept," the older woman said immediately. "Whatever you decide, whenever you're ready. And Dr. Elowen, thank you for saving my husband, for giving us this chance." After the meeting ended, Layla walked back to the hospital feeling emotionally drained. She stopped by Dr. Harrison's office to collect Elijah, finding him happily playing with blocks. "How did it go?" Harrison asked quietly. "Complicated," Layla admitted. "They're sorry. Genuinely, I think. But sorry doesn't undo the damage." "No," Harrison agreed, "but maybe over time it can start to heal it. For Elijah's sake, if nothing else." Layla gathered her son into her arms, breathing in his baby scent. "I don't know if I can ever truly forgive them, but maybe I can learn to coexist with them. For him." That evening, Layla received an unexpected visitor. Her doorbell rang just as she was putting Elijah down for the night. Through the peephole, she saw Lenny standing on her porch, looking nervous. She almost didn't open the door, but curiosity got the better of her. "What do you want?" she asked, blocking the doorway. "I heard you met with my mother today. I wanted to thank you, and to ask if I could meet Elijah. Please, I know I have no right, but I'm begging you." Layla studied him carefully. He looked genuinely broken, the arrogance completely stripped away. This was a man who had lost everything and knew it. "He's asleep," she said, "but come in, quietly." Lenny followed her inside, his eyes widening as he took in the beautiful home she'd created. Every detail spoke of taste and care. "This is beautiful," he said softly. "I know," Layla replied. "I built it myself, for me and Elijah." She led him to the nursery where Elijah slept peacefully, one tiny fist curled near his face. Lenny stood frozen in the doorway, staring at his son with wonder and devastating regret. "He's perfect," Lenny whispered. "Yes, he is," Layla agreed. "And he's been perfect since the day he was born, while you were celebrating your wedding to another woman." Lenny flinched but didn't look away from Elijah. "What have I done? What have I thrown away?" "Everything," Layla said simply. "You threw away everything." They stood together in the quiet nursery, watching their son sleep. Two people who had created a life together, but would never be together again. "Can I be part of his life?" Lenny asked finally. "Even just a little?" Layla looked at him, this man who had once been her whole world. "We'll start slowly. Supervised visits, here at my home. You'll see him on my schedule, on my terms. If you prove yourself reliable and good for him, we can expand from there. But Lenny, understand this. He's my son first. You're just someone who might get to be in his life if you earn that privilege." "Thank you," Lenny said, tears sliding down his face. "Thank you so much." "Don't thank me," Layla said. "Thank Elijah. He's the only reason I'm even considering this. Now leave. I'll contact you when I'm ready to arrange the first visit." After Lenny left, Layla stood alone in Elijah's nursery, watching her son sleep peacefully, unaware of the complicated adult world swirling around him. She had done it. She had faced the family that destroyed her and emerged victorious, had saved the life of a man who scorned her, had made them all understand exactly who they had thrown away. But victory felt strange. Less triumphant than she'd imagined, more like simple justice finally being served. Layla kissed Elijah's forehead gently. "We're going to be okay, baby," she whispered. "Better than okay, because your mama remembered who she is and no one will ever make her forget again." Chapter 8. Surgery and Surrender. The weeks following Lenny's father's discharge from the hospital settled into an unexpected rhythm. Lenny visited Elijah twice a week, always at Layla's home, always supervised. He would sit on the floor and play with his son, building towers with blocks that Elijah gleefully knocked down, reading picture books in silly voices that made the baby laugh. Watching them together, Layla felt complicated emotions she couldn't quite name. Lenny was genuinely trying. He never pushed for more time than she offered, never questioned her rules, never tried to insert himself into her life beyond these careful, bounded interactions with Elijah. And despite everything, he was a good father during those hours, attentive and gentle and clearly besotted with his son. But Layla felt nothing for him except a distant kind of pity. He had thrown away their life together, and watching him try to build crumbs of connection with Elijah just highlighted the magnitude of what he'd lost. Her career, meanwhile, continued to flourish beyond her wildest expectations. The story of her saving Lenny's father had made her something of a legend in medical circles. Patients traveled from other states specifically to have Dr. Elowen perform their cardiac surgeries. It was during this period that Layla met Dante Rousseau. She was leaving the hospital late one evening, exhausted from a complex surgery, when she noticed a man sitting in the hallway outside the surgical wing. He stood when he saw her, tall and elegant, with kind eyes and an expression of profound relief. "Dr. Elowen?" he asked. "Yes," Layla said cautiously. "Can I help you?" "You already did," he said. "You saved my sister's life today, Elena Rousseau, the mitral valve repair." Layla remembered the surgery, one of several she had performed that week. Elena is doing very well. She should make a full recovery. I know, Dante said. I've been sitting with her. She's asleep now, peaceful for the first time in months. And I realized I needed to find you, to thank you properly. Every other surgeon we consulted said the risk was too high, that we should prepare for the worst. But you didn't give up on her. I don't give up on my patients, Layla said simply. I can see that. Dante studied her with an intensity that wasn't uncomfortable, just thoughtful. You look exhausted. Have you eaten? Layla blinked at the question. Not since this morning. There's a decent cafe still open a block from here. Would you let me buy you dinner? As a thank you for saving my sister's life. Something in his straightforward kindness appealed to Layla. He wasn't trying to flirt or impress her, just offering a meal to someone who looked like they needed one. Okay, she said, but just a quick meal. I need to get home to my son. Over soup and sandwiches, Layla learned that Dante was a professor of architecture, that Elena was his younger sister and only sibling, and that their parents had passed away several years ago in an accident. She's all the family I have left, Dante said quietly. When the doctors said her heart was failing and nothing could be done, I felt like I was losing the last piece of my parents. But you gave her back to me. You gave me hope. I'm glad I could help, Layla said, meaning it. Tell me about your son, Dante said, changing the subject with obvious intent to focus on something happy. How old? Still a baby, Layla said, unable to stop the smile that always came when she talked about Elijah. Perfect and beautiful, and the best thing that ever happened to me. And his father? Layla's smile faded. Not in the picture. It's just me and Elijah. Dante nodded, asking no further questions, respecting her obvious boundaries. They talked about other things, safe topics like architecture and medicine, finding unexpected common ground in their shared appreciation for precision and beauty in their respective fields. When they finally left the cafe, Dante walked her to her car. Thank you for dinner, Layla said, and for the company. It was nice to talk about something other than cardiac tissue for a while. Would you like to do it again sometime? Dante asked. Just as friends, no pressure? You seem like someone who could use more friends. Layla considered refusing. Her life was complicated enough without adding new people to it. But something about Dante's genuine kindness, his lack of agenda, appealed to her. Maybe, she said. Let me think about it. Fair enough, Dante said, smiling. I'll be visiting Elena daily until she's discharged. Maybe I'll see you around. Over the next few weeks, Layla did see him around. He was always there during Elena's recovery, and somehow they kept running into each other. Coffee in the hospital cafeteria, brief conversations in hallways. Gradually, carefully, a friendship began to form. Dante never pushed, never asked intrusive questions about her personal life, never tried to make their interactions into something romantic. He was just consistently, genuinely kind in a way that Layla had almost forgotten men could be. It was 6 weeks after Eleanor's surgery, when his sister was fully recovered and discharged, that Dante asked Layla to dinner again. A proper thank you, he said. At a real restaurant, not a hospital cafe. You saved my sister's life. Let me at least feed you well. Layla agreed, arranging for a trusted babysitter to stay with Elijah. The restaurant Dante chose was elegant but not pretentious, the kind of place that valued good food over show. Tell me something, Dante said over dessert. And you can tell me it's none of my business if you want, but I sense there's a story behind the sadness in your eyes. You don't have to share it, but I'm a good listener if you ever want to. Maybe it was the wine, or the exhaustion from too many long shifts, or just the novelty of someone asking about her well-being without wanting something in return. Whatever the reason, Layla found herself telling him everything. About being Dr. Elowen, who gave up her career for love, about Lenny's betrayal and abandonment, about giving birth alone and reclaiming her power, about saving her ex-father-in-law's life and watching her former family learn who she really was. Dante listened without interrupting, his expression shifting from shock to anger to something like awe. "You're incredible," he said when she finished. "Not because of what happened to you, but because of how you handled it. You didn't let it destroy you. You used it to remember who you are." "I had Elijah," Layla said simply. "I couldn't fall apart when he needed me." "Still," Dante said, "most people would have broken. You became stronger." For the first time since Lenny's betrayal, Layla felt truly seen, not as a victim or a revenge story or a cautionary tale, just as a strong woman who had survived something devastating and come out the other side more herself than ever. "Layla," Dante said carefully, "I know your life is complicated. I know you're healing from serious wounds. I'm not asking for anything you're not ready to give. But I want you to know that I see you, all of you. The brilliant surgeon, the fierce mother, the woman who survived betrayal and became stronger. And if you ever want someone to stand beside you, not to complete you because you're already complete, but just to celebrate who you are, I'd like to be that person." Layla felt tears sting her eyes. "I don't know if I can trust anyone again. Not romantically." "I understand," Dante said, "and I'm not asking you to trust me now. I'm just asking you to leave the possibility open. Let me prove myself worthy over time. No pressure, no demands, just patience and consistency and respect for everything you've been through." "Why?" Layla asked. "Why would you want to take on someone with my baggage?" "Because you're not baggage," Dante said firmly. "You're a woman who knows her worth, who's proven her strength, who's built a beautiful life for herself and her son despite every obstacle. That's not baggage. That's evidence of character. And character is what I value most." They left the restaurant with no promises made, no commitments declared. But something had shifted. Layla felt the possibility of happiness opening before her like a door she thought had been permanently closed. Over the months that followed, Dante became a consistent presence in her life. He attended Elijah's first birthday party, bringing thoughtful gifts and charming the other guests with his genuine interest in people. He showed up at the hospital with coffee on mornings when Layla had particularly challenging surgeries scheduled. He sent text messages checking in, never demanding responses but always letting her know he was thinking of her. And slowly, so slowly, Layla barely noticed it happening. Her frozen heart began to thaw. The first time Dante met Lenny was accidental and awkward. Lenny had come for one of his scheduled visits with Elijah, and Dante had arrived to drop off some architectural journals he thought Layla might find interesting. The two men stared at each other in Layla's foyer, tension crackling between them. "You must be Elijah's father," Dante said evenly. "And you must be the new boyfriend," Lenny replied, his tone sharp. "Friend," Layla corrected firmly. "Dante is my friend. Now, Lenny, Elijah is in the playroom. You have 2 hours." After Lenny left with Elijah, Dante turned to Layla with concern. "I didn't mean to complicate things with him." "You didn't," Layla assured him. "Lenny has no say in who I spend time with. That ship sailed when he abandoned me pregnant to marry another woman." "Still," Dante said, "I don't want to make your life harder." "You make my life better," Layla said honestly. "You remind me that there are good men in the world, men who see women as equals, as people worthy of respect and care. Don't underestimate how much I needed that reminder." Dante pulled her into a gentle hug, just holding her, asking for nothing except the privilege of offering comfort. Layla leaned into his warmth and realized something profound. She was healing. Actually, genuinely healing, not just surviving or getting stronger, but allowing herself to be vulnerable again with someone who had earned that trust through consistent kindness. When she pulled back, Dante cupped her face gently. "I'm falling in love with you," he said quietly. "I've been trying not to, giving you space and time. But watching you with Elijah, seeing you save lives, witnessing your strength and grace, I can't help it. You don't have to say anything back. I just needed you to know." Layla looked into his eyes and saw only truth. No games, no manipulation, no hidden agenda, just a good man being honest about his feelings. "I'm not ready to say it back," she admitted. "The last time I loved someone, he destroyed me." "I know," Dante said, "and I'll wait, however long it takes, because you're worth waiting for, Layla Eloan. You're worth everything." As Layla stood in her beautiful home, this space she'd created for herself and her son, with a man who saw her worth holding her gently, she realized that victory wasn't about making Lenny regret his choices. Victory was this: building a life so beautiful that his betrayal became just a chapter in her story, not the whole book. And that chapter was finally, mercifully, coming to a close. Chapter 9. The Kingdom Falls. The summons came on a random afternoon while Layla was reviewing patient files in her office. Lenny's father wanted to see her, not at the hospital, not for a medical consultation, but at his home. He had something important to discuss with his entire family present, and he specifically requested Layla's attendance. "You don't have to go," Dr. Harrison said, when she told him about the request. "You fulfilled every medical obligation to that family." "I know," Layla said, "but I'm curious, and maybe it's time for some final closure." She arranged for Dante to watch Elijah, giving him a key to her house with a trust that still felt new and fragile, but increasingly right. "Are you sure you want to do this alone?" Dante asked as she prepared to leave. "I could come with you. Moral support." "I need to face them alone," Layla said. "But thank you for offering, for being exactly who you are." The Leopold family mansion was as imposing as she remembered, all elegant architecture and manicured grounds. A butler answered the door and led her to the formal living room where the entire family had gathered. Lenny's father sat in a high-backed chair, looking healthier than he had in months. His wife sat beside him, her expression nervous. Lenny stood by the window, his brothers and their wives arranged around the room, like actors in a play awaiting their cues. "Dr. Eloan," the old man said, rising slowly with the help of a cane, "thank you for coming." "What is this about?" Layla asked, remaining standing near the door, ready to leave if needed. "This is about justice," Lenny's father said, "and accountability. Please, sit." Layla perched on the edge of an armchair, her posture perfect, her expression neutral. The old man looked around at his family, his gaze settling on each of them with something like disgust. "I've gathered you all here because I've made several decisions, and you needed to hear them together. First, I want Dr. Eloan to witness what I'm about to say, because she deserves to hear this." He turned to Lenny, his expression hardening. "You, my son, are no longer my heir." The room erupted in shocked gasps. Lenny went pale. "Father, what?" "Be quiet," the old man snapped. "You threw away a queen to marry a gold digger. You abandoned your pregnant wife, a woman who had saved my life, because you were too blind and selfish to see what you had. You don't deserve to lead this family. You've proven yourself unworthy." "But father," Lenny's mother tried to interject. "And you?" The old man turned to his wife. "You encouraged this disaster. You judged Dr. Eloan by her pedigree instead of her character. You spat at her feet while she was pregnant with your grandchild. I'm ashamed to call you my wife." Lenny's mother burst into tears, but the old man wasn't finished. "I've been doing some soul-searching since my surgery, thinking about the man I want to be in the years Dr. Eloan has given me, and I've realized that this family has lost its way. We've valued status over character, appearances over substance. We destroyed something beautiful and pure because we couldn't see past our own prejudices." He looked at Layla, his eyes shining with unshed tears. "Dr. Eloan, you saved my life twice, once with your surgical skills, and once by showing me how hollow my values had become. You gave me years I don't deserve, years I should have spent being a better man. I can't undo the past, but I can change the future." "What are you saying?" Lenny asked, his voice shaking. I'm saying that my primary heir is now Elijah, the old man announced. Dr. Elowen's son, my grandson, the child this family abandoned. The bulk of my estate will go to him, held in trust until he comes of age. You, Lenny, will receive a modest allowance, enough to live on, but nothing like what you expected to inherit. You can't do this, Lenny shouted. I absolutely can, his father replied. It's my money, my company, my legacy, and I'm making sure it goes to someone who deserves it. A child who will hopefully be raised with the values his mother embodies: strength, integrity, the understanding that worth comes from character, not status. Lenny looked at Layla desperately. Did you know about this? Is this your revenge? I had no idea, Layla said honestly. And this isn't about revenge. This is about your father recognizing that he enabled your worst instincts and is trying to make amends. Dr. Elowen, the old man said, I know you don't need my money. You've built a successful career on your own. But I want Elijah to have the security that comes from generational wealth, and I want him to have it from a family that finally understands his worth. Will you accept this for him? Layla thought carefully. I'll accept it on 2 conditions. First, that Elijah never becomes dependent on inherited wealth. He'll be raised to work, to build his own success, to understand that money is a tool, not a measure of worth. Second, that your family proves themselves worthy of being in his life. No more toxicity, no more prejudice, just genuine love and respect. Agreed, the old man said immediately. Those are exactly the conditions I would have wanted. Lenny's mother spoke through her tears. Can we see him, our grandson? We've been waiting for permission, hoping you would let us be part of his life. Layla looked at the family that had destroyed her, seeing them now broken and humbled. She felt no satisfaction in their pain, but she also felt no obligation to comfort them. You can meet Elijah, she said finally, but understand that I'm watching. One hint of the same attitudes that led to this disaster, and you're gone from his life permanently. He deserves better than what you gave me. We'll be better, Lenny's mother promised. We swear it. After the meeting ended, Lenny followed Layla out to her car. Layla, wait, he said desperately. Please. She turned to face him, seeing a man completely broken by the consequences of his choices. What, Lenny? I've lost everything, he said. My inheritance, my family's respect, the woman I loved. Our son barely knows me. Was it worth it? Was Thea worth all of this? You know she wasn't, Layla said quietly. But here's what you need to understand, Lenny. This isn't about whether Thea was worth it. This is about the fact that you were willing to throw me away in the first place. That's the real betrayal. Not leaving me for someone better, but leaving me because you fundamentally didn't value me. I see that now, Lenny said, tears streaming down his face. I see it so clearly. You were everything, and I was too stupid to realize it. Yes, you were, Layla agreed. But you know what? I'm grateful. If you hadn't left me, I never would have remembered who I was. I never would have reclaimed my power. I never would have built this beautiful life for Elijah. Your betrayal was the best thing that ever happened to me, even though it nearly destroyed me at the time. Do you love him? Lenny asked. Dante? Layla thought about Dante's patient kindness, his respect for her boundaries, the way he looked at Elijah with genuine affection, even though the child wasn't his. I'm learning to, she said honestly. He's teaching me that love doesn't have to hurt, that the right person celebrates your strength instead of asking you to diminish it. I would do better now, Lenny said desperately. If you gave me another chance, I would worship you the way you deserve. But I don't want to give you another chance, Layla said gently. I don't love you anymore, Lenny. I don't even think about you except when I have to arrange your visits with Elijah. You're just my son's father, nothing more. And honestly, that's exactly how it should be. She got into her car, leaving him standing in the driveway of his family's mansion, alone with his regrets. Driving home, Layla felt lighter than she had in months. She had faced the family that destroyed her and emerged completely, utterly victorious. Not because she had schemed or plotted revenge, but simply because she had remembered her worth and refused to accept less. When she arrived home, she found Dante and Elijah in the playroom, building an elaborate tower with blocks. Elijah squealed with delight when he saw her, crawling over with impressive speed to grab at her legs. "How did it go?" Dante asked, studying her face. "It's over," Layla said, scooping up Elijah and holding him close. "That chapter of my life is finally, completely over." "And how do you feel?" Layla looked around her beautiful home, at her perfect son in her arms, at this good man who had proven his worth through patience and consistency. "I feel free," she said, "like I can finally breathe all the way." Dante stood and pulled them both into a gentle hug, Elijah giggling between them. "I'm proud of you," he said, "for surviving, for thriving, for becoming exactly who you were meant to be." "I couldn't have done it without Elijah," Layla said, kissing her son's cheek. "He gave me a reason to remember my strength." "You would have found it anyway," Dante said, "because that strength was always in you. You just forgot it for a while." That evening, after Elijah was asleep, Layla and Dante sat on her back porch, watching the city lights twinkle in the distance. "Dante," Layla said quietly, "I need to tell you something." He turned to her, his expression open and patient as always. "I'm listening." "I'm falling in love with you," she said, the words feeling both terrifying and liberating. "I've been fighting it because I was scared of being hurt again, scared of making another mistake. But watching you with Elijah tonight, seeing how patient you've been with me, I realize something. You're not Lenny. You've proven that 100 times over, and I'm tired of punishing you for his mistakes." Dante's eyes filled with tears. "Layla, I'm not saying I'm ready for everything," she continued. "I still have walls up. I still flinch sometimes when you get too close too fast. But I want to try. With you. If you're still willing to be patient with me." "I would wait forever for you," Dante said, taking her hand. "But I'm glad I don't have to. I love you, Layla. I love your strength and your vulnerability. I love how you are with Elijah. I love watching you save lives. I love everything about you, including the parts that are still healing." They sat together in the peaceful darkness, hands intertwined, two people who had found each other through pain and proven that healing was possible when met with genuine love. Inside, Elijah slept peacefully, unaware that his mother had just taken the final step toward truly moving forward, unaware that the broken woman who had given birth to him alone was now whole again, stronger and more herself than ever before. The Leopold family's fall from grace was complete. Lenny's inheritance stripped away, his father's respect lost, his family's name tainted by their own cruelty coming back to haunt them. But Layla wasn't thinking about their downfall anymore. She was thinking about the future, about the life she was building with Elijah, about the possibility of love with a man who saw her as an equal, about the surgeries she would perform and the lives she would save. The revenge she had achieved wasn't calculated or cruel. It was simply the natural consequence of a woman remembering her worth and refusing to settle for less. The Leopolds had destroyed themselves through their own prejudice and cruelty. Layla had just survived them and thrived despite them. And that, she realized, was the most devastating revenge of all. Chapter 10. Queen's Coronation. The seasons changed, as they always do, marking time's passage with falling leaves and blooming flowers and the gradual transformation of a baby into a toddler. Elijah grew into a beautiful child with his mother's dark eyes and a smile that could melt the coldest heart. He learned to walk, stumbling into Layla's arms with determination that made her laugh and cry at once. He learned to talk, his first word, Mama, followed quickly by Dada when Lenny visited, and eventually Dante pronounced as Dan Dan, which the architect found utterly charming. The Leopold family proved themselves slowly and carefully. They visited regularly, bringing thoughtful gifts rather than expensive ones, playing with Elijah on the floor rather than hovering from a distance. Lenny's mother cried the first time Elijah called her grandma, the word redemptive in a way that money or status could never be. Lenny remained a consistent presence in his son's life, but nothing more to Layla. He had accepted his reduced role with the quiet dignity of a man who understood he had no right to ask for more. Sometimes Layla caught him watching her with Dante, his expression unreadable, but tinged with the kind of regret that time couldn't erase. Dante had become essential to Layla's life in ways she hadn't anticipated. He picked Elijah up from daycare when her surgeries ran late. He cooked dinner in her kitchen, filling her home with laughter and the smell of good food. He held her after difficult days when patients didn't survive despite her best efforts, offering comfort without trying to fix what couldn't be fixed. And slowly, naturally, he became part of their family. It was on a Sunday morning, with Elijah playing at their feet and sunlight streaming through the windows, that Dante proposed. He didn't make a big production of it. No restaurant or public display, just the three of them in Layla's living room, Elijah babbling happily about his toy cars when Dante pulled a simple, elegant ring from his pocket. "Layla," he said quietly, dropping to one knee. "I love you. I love Elijah. I love the life we've built together. I know you were hurt before. I know you gave up everything once for someone who didn't deserve you. But I'm not asking you to give up anything. I'm asking if I can be part of what you've already built. If you'll let me stand beside you as your equal, your partner, the person who gets to celebrate your strength every single day." Elijah noticed the ring and grabbed for it, making them both laugh. "Yes," Layla said, tears streaming down her face. "Yes, Dante, I'll marry you." He slipped the ring on her finger, then pulled both her and Elijah into a hug. The toddler giggled, delighted by the group embrace, having no idea he had just witnessed the beginning of a new chapter in his mother's story. They married in the spring, in a small ceremony, surrounded by people who genuinely loved them. Dr. Harrison walked Layla down the aisle, having become the father figure she'd never had. The surgical team attended, along with patients whose lives Layla had saved and who wanted to celebrate her happiness. The Leopold family sat in the back, grateful to be included. Lenny's father, healthy and strong thanks to Layla's skilled hands, watched with tears in his eyes. Lenny himself sat beside his mother, his expression peaceful in a way it hadn't been in years. He had lost everything, yes, but watching Layla marry a man who truly deserved her brought a strange kind of closure. Elijah was the ring bearer, toddling down the aisle with the rings tied to a pillow he kept trying to chew. The guests laughed with delight, and Layla's heart felt so full it might burst. When she reached the altar and saw Dante waiting for her, his eyes shining with love and certainty, Layla realized something profound. This was what love should feel like. Safe and celebrating and built on mutual respect rather than one person making themselves small. "You are the strongest woman I've ever known," Dante said during his vows. "And I will spend my life making sure you never doubt your worth again. I don't complete you because you're already complete. I just celebrate you exactly as you are." "You taught me that love doesn't have to hurt," Layla said through happy tears, "that the right person makes you more yourself, not less. That being vulnerable doesn't mean being weak. I love you for seeing me, all of me, and choosing to stay." The reception was joyful and simple, filled with genuine happiness rather than pretense. Layla danced with Dante, with Dr. Harrison, even with Lenny's father, who apologized again and thanked her for giving his family a chance at redemption. Lenny approached her during a quiet moment, his expression sincere. "You look happy," he said. "Actually, genuinely happy. I don't think I ever made you look like that." You didn't, Layla agreed gently. But that's okay. We were wrong for each other. I see that now. I needed someone who celebrated my power, not someone who asked me to hide it. I'm sorry, Lenny said. I'll spend the rest of my life being sorry. Don't, Layla said. Don't waste your life on regret. Be a good father to Elijah. Be a better person than you were. That's the only apology I need. He nodded, understanding that this was their final closure. The end of what they had been to each other and the acceptance of what they would be going forward. Co-parents. Nothing more. As the celebration continued around them, Layla found herself standing with Dante and Elijah, watching their friends and family dance and laugh. Dr. Harrison raised a glass in their direction. The surgical team waved enthusiastically. The Leopold family sat together, humbled and grateful for inclusion. "What are you thinking?" Dante asked, his arm around her waist. "I'm thinking about how far I've come," Layla said. "That woman who was abandoned pregnant feels like a different person, someone I used to be but am not anymore." "She's still part of you," Dante said, "just the wounded part that healed into something stronger." Elijah tugged on Layla's dress, demanding to be picked up. She lifted him easily, settling him on her hip, this beautiful child who had saved her by giving her a reason to save herself. "Mama happy?" Elijah asked, with his limited toddler vocabulary. "Yes, baby," Layla said, kissing his cheek. "Mama is very happy." Over the following years, the story of Dr. Layla Erlowen became legend in medical circles. The surgeon who was abandoned pregnant and came back to become one of the most respected cardiac specialists in the country. The woman who saved her ex-father-in-law's life and taught an entire family about the price of prejudice. The mother who raised a son alone and built an empire while healing from betrayal. But Layla didn't think of herself as legendary. She was just a woman who had forgotten her worth for a while and then remembered it. A woman who had been broken and chose to heal stronger. A woman who refused to let betrayal define her story. She continued performing surgeries that other doctors deemed impossible, saving lives with hands that a man once deemed unworthy. She raised Elijah with Dante's help, teaching their son about strength and kindness and the understanding that worth comes from character, not status or wealth. The Leopold inheritance sat in trust for Elijah, but Layla made sure he understood it was a tool, not a measure of value. She raised him to work, to build his own success, to understand that real power comes from within. Lenny remained in their lives, a good father during his designated times, but nothing more. He never remarried, carrying his regrets quietly while watching the family he had destroyed flourish without him. And sometimes, on quiet evenings when Elijah was asleep and Dante was grading architectural plans at the kitchen table, Layla would think about the journey she had taken, from bride to abandoned wife to single mother to legendary surgeon to beloved wife and mother again. People asked her sometimes how she survived it, how she went from being spit on while pregnant to becoming the powerful Dr. Erlowen, whose name commanded respect in every hospital in the country. Her answer was always the same. "I remembered who I was before anyone told me who to be, and I decided that woman was worth fighting for." That was the real revenge. Not making Lenny suffer, though he did. Not watching the Leopold family fall from grace, though they had. The real revenge was building a life so beautiful, so full, so completely her own, that his betrayal became just a footnote in her story, rather than the whole narrative. Dr. Layla Erlowen had survived the unthinkable and emerged more powerful than anyone imagined. She had held beating hearts in her hands and brought the dying back to life. She had raised a son alone and found love again with someone who deserved her. And when people in the city told her story in the years that followed, they spoke of courage and resilience and the kind of strength that comes from refusing to be defined by other people's cruelty. They spoke of a queen who remembered her crown, and that queen lived happily, powerfully, completely on her own terms, surrounded by genuine love, and the certain knowledge that she was exactly who she was meant to be. The greatest revenge story ever told wasn't about destruction. It was about a woman who saved herself, and in doing so, showed the world what real power looked like. The end.